Yup, we covered the Detroit Red Wings and the Toronto Maple Leafs side of this article. That got 22,000 views. We did the Red Wings and the Blues part of this article. That video, surprisingly, got 10,000 views. What the hell? I said my expectation for that video was 300, and we got to 10,000. And even before I made that video and got a whole bunch of views, I was thinking to myself, you know what? It would only be appropriate to clean sweep this Ted Kulfan article on the Detroit News and connect the Red Wings with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. But of course, because you can read the title and the thumbnail, we're only going to talk about Pittsburgh in this one. My goal for this one is quite ambitious. We said 300 views for the last time. For this video, I am expecting at least a minimum of 500 views. The last one, I expected 300 and we blew that out of the water. So just going a little bit higher on my expectations, I think, should be quite a bit more achievable. But today we're talking about Ted Kulfan's article once again, the possible trade targets for the Red Wings who have the money to be buyers article published earlier in the month. For context, this article goes over a few different NHL teams that are kind of strapped up against the cap and who kind of have problems with how they're going to deal with their players and their contract negotiations next season. And it talks about these teams in a way that connects them to the Detroit Red Wings and how the Red Wings could use the cap space that they have to take advantage of these other teams' ill situations. We already talked about the Leafs with Andreas Johnsson and Kasperi Kapanen, and we already talked about the St. Louis Blues and their idea with Jaden, Schwartz, and Jake Allen. But today's video goes over the Pittsburgh Penguins, because Ted Kulfan also writes in his article that both Tristan Jarry and Matt Murray from the Penguins could be potential trade targets. Let's go over what it says here. Tristan Jarry is only 25 years old and will be an RFA after making $675,000 a year with a career-best 20-win season and .921 save percentage. My goodness, that's incredible. Do the Penguins keep Jarry or Matt Murray? It's difficult to envision them keeping both. And because we're on this subject, let's just go over to the other side. Matt Murray is another RFA who made $3.75 million this season. But at age 26, he had his poorest season with 20 wins and an .899 save percentage. Murray has won 2 cups with Pittsburgh, but his play the last 2 seasons has not inspired confidence. Now, this whole Matt Murray, Tristan Jarry thing has been brewing for a few months now, and if you just take a look at the statistical comparison between both of these guys, it's clear to see why. They split the load 30-ish games each, Jarry at .243 goals against average and a .921 save percentage, Murray with a .287 goals against average and an .899 save percentage. Now, the goals against average, they're a lot more closer than the save percentages, just in terms of relativity, but just looking at the numbers, man, an .899 is, in today's NHL, subpar. It's less than average, it's not as good as you could be, and you wouldn't really expect to go far with an .899 save percentage goalie. On the other hand, though, Tristan Jarry is at a .921. Among all goalies over 20 games played, Jarry's literally in the top 10. He's over Ben Bishop, who probably should have been a Vezina candidate this season. He's over Robin Lehner, who's been really, really good the past few years. He was over Jacob Markstrom, who stole games for the Canucks, over Andrei Vasilevsky, who's, well, he's a nominee for the Vezina this year, isn't he? And man, oh man, has he actually been stable. And nobody really expected this out of him too. Tristan Jarry is a guy who's 25 years old, and he just spent the majority of his past few years up and down between the Pittsburgh system and the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton system. Sure, in 2017-2018, he played 26 games with the Penguins, but he's so much better today than he was back then that it's not even funny. There's a crazy, crazy idea now as to what's going to happen with either of these two. Earlier yesterday, in the exhibition game against the Philadelphia Flyers, both of them split the load. And the analysts were talking very heavily about how there's always going to be this competition burning underneath both of them because, you know, if you start faltering up, there's another guy right there on the bench who can easily come in and take your job. You're not Carey Price in this situation where you're pretty much guaranteed to play the entire way. There's uncertainty here because both of these guys are RFAs, both of these guys have different context, and in a vacuum, it just looks like Jarry is the better goaltender statistically speaking. To both of their credits, though, they did look pretty solid. They did split the load. Yesterday, Murray played 29 minutes, Jarry played 32 because there was the overtime. Jarry made 9 saves on 10 shots, Murray with 10 saves on 12 shots. The Penguins did lose in overtime, by the way, so Jarry did give up that overtime goal. But Matt Murray was the guy who was in for the regulation goals, so we'll leave that at that. But the reason this whole situation is difficult for Penguins fans is because we know how good Matt Murray can be. Might I remind you, he won a Stanley Cup before his rookie year in the NHL concluded, which is absolutely crazy because he ended up winning another Stanley Cup at the end of his rookie year. A guy who was called up to the Penguins system in 2016, played 21 games in the playoffs, won then the Stanley Cup while Marc-Andre Fleury was on the bench. Then he played his rookie year in the NHL. He had himself a .923 save percentage that year in 49 games. Amazing, by the way. Then played 11 games in the playoffs, splitting the load with Marc-Andre Fleury. They won a cup, and then Fleury went to Vegas. So, there's so much history here with Matt Murray and how he was able to man the crease in Pittsburgh for 3-4 years now, with the previous 2 seeing him as the primary guy. But recently, things have kind of fallen off a little bit. And at the worst possible time, too. He's 26 years old and he's coming off of a $3-point-something million contract, meaning that the next contract he gets will either be long-term and it'll be his retirement money, or if it's a short-term deal, it'll set him up towards that longer-term deal in the future. But he came off of a bad year. .899 save percentage, darn. And, of course, there's a dilemma here, because now if you take a look at the Red Wings and you take a look at how their situation is going up, because they have a lot of cap space, they can just pretty much do whatever they want, they're going to probably not re-sign Jimmy Howard, and they can't really just rely on only Jonathan Bernier for next season, even though they're going to be probably a bad team. So now you take a look at it here. Who do you trade for if you want the rights to one of these 2 players in order to sign them and in order for your team to actually compete next season? Now, I say compete, but I don't mean like compete for the cup or whatever, but just compete in the games in general. And in my opinion, I would honestly say that Matt Murray should be that guy. You know why? Well, let's go over why. First off, to me, personally speaking, Tristan Jarry is the better goaltender today. And going into the next season, you can't really have that uncertainty. The Pittsburgh Penguins currently are listed at $700,000 as their cap space, and things are going to change up when they give contracts out to Connor Sherry, Evan Rodriguez, Jared McCann. There's so many guys to sign here. And to me personally, I think the Penguins would honestly be willing to part a little bit more with Matt Murray than they would be with Jarry. Because, on paper, he's more expensive. He's got a better track record than Jarry does because he won 2 Stanley Cups and he's that guy who bested out Fleury in the crease. But his performance this past season was worse. Meaning that to me, if a Red Wings team wanted to get another goaltender to play alongside of Jonathan Bernier, the easier one to get would be Matt Murray. And furthermore, the cap space, well, I know he's more expensive, but the Red Wings do have cap space to burn. And for a guy who still has the potential to be a very, very good goaltender in this league up until he's, 32, 33, which is going to be 7 years away, there's possibility here that the Red Wings can actually benefit from getting a good goaltender that can be good long-term. Obviously, Jarry is younger. Jarry has the potential to become more in the short term, but one bad season for Matt Murray doesn't mean that he is terrible. It's just, today, if you're in the context of the Penguins who want to win now before Crosby and Malkin fade away into the sunset, you want to do everything you can to help your team compete and remain in that position to compete today. And just in my personal opinion, Jarry does that more than Murray does. So, talk to me in the comments below what you think about this idea, because if the Red Wings wanted to go after a Murray or a Jarry, hey, they got a lot of picks, they got a lot of prospects, a lot of guys that the Penguins could probably use in their lineup within the next few seasons and actually relieve their own cap space with, because they don't have much of that. And of course, Kulfan writes about it in the article. It's the entire reason he published the article. The Red Wings have a ton of cap space, so they can use that to their advantage in a situation like this. So talk to me in the comments below. What do you think, Murray or Jarry? If the Red Wings want to go after either of these, who do you want them to go for more? And furthermore, do you like this idea in general? Because I know not every Red Wings fan out there is going to say that they like the idea of them going after a goalie because it wouldn't really seem necessary. Of course, I said something similar to that in the previous video talking about Jake Allen, but at the very same time, I do understand why the point has been made. So, talk to me in the comments below what you think about that. I hope you enjoyed this video. So, that's Troll99, and bye.